What a mess. All right. Anyway, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight,
Alan, I'm
Bob?
doing all right. I'm doing all right, Alan. I'm waiting for you and I to get the calls to be interviewed for the Saints offensive coordinator spot. But while we're waiting, we might as well do a show, right?
I'll tell you what, they've interviewed just about anybody who is associated with, who pumped gas for, who may have delivered mail to Kyle Shanahan. Uh,
Yeah.
it, it, it's uh, it's been a hell of a thing. I mean, they clearly know what they want. It's just a matter of
Mm-hmm.
finding the guy to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and I really think that they want to interview either Clint Kubiak or Brian Greasy, and they have to wait for those guys
Mm-hmm.
because now they're in the Super Bowl. Um, hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers hired Arthur Smith today. So, for
Yeah.
you, all you people thinking the Saints are a complete disaster, look at the Steelers.
Yeah, I have been laughing hysterically all afternoon and into the evening at that hire. But Alan, I think you're right. My hunch is, that the Saints really want Kubiak and or Brian Greasy, and their contact with them has had to be by rule limited because of San Francisco's playoff run. So New Orleans, to their credit, they're not rushing a hire. They're not hitting the panic button. They're doing their due diligence and interviewing as many guys as they can. Because if you put all your eggs into the Kubiak or Greasy basket, and those guys either don't want to come or get hired by someone else, then you're stuck twisting in the wind. So I don't have, unlike most of Saints Nation, I don't have a problem, with New Orleans doing, interviewing so many people, because you have to figure this too. There are other teams, 6 other teams that are looking for offensive coordinators as we sit here tonight speaking. So the Saints these candidates are not only trying to sell themselves. New Orleans and other teams are trying to sell them to these candidates as they're shopping themselves around. It's a street that goes both ways right now, and unless you have an elite quarterback, which the Saints don't, and nor do the Patriots, Buccaneers, Raiders, or Titans. 5 of the 6 teams that are looking for a coordinator, nobody has an elite quarterback or really has an answer on how to get one right now. So you have to sell these coordinators, the idea that, hey, we're the place that you want to come to, and here's why. And of course, these other guys, the Kubiaks, the Greasies, the Gerard Johnsons, and some of the others that they've interviewed. They're going to talk to other people. They'd be idiots not to. This process is long from over, and I would not be surprised if there's a few other names added to this interview list before it's said and done.
Well, you're talking about putting all your eggs in one basket. Well, that's basically what the Washington franchise did. They put all their eggs in the Johnson basket from the Lions,
Mm-hmm.
and he turned them down. He turned
Yeah.
Seattle down. So Washington not only does not have an offensive coordinator, they don't have a head coach, they don't have anything. And these coaches getting picked up left and right. Um, Seattle's in the same boat. Who are they going to hire? Um, we're hearing names, but Seattle has no coach. They have no coordinators. So I mean, it's this weekend is Senior Bowl, and Senior Bowl traditionally was the job fair for assistant coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fact that we now have 17 games in the season and the Super Bowl is now going into the second weekend of February, not the first anymore. Senior Bowl is now starting to fall more into the regular season this of the calendar season of the NFL
Yep.
rather than after the Super Bowl's over with and the Pro Bowl and everything else. It's the Senior Bowl, and teams can start talking to any coach they want to, So it's going to get to the point where Senior Bowl is going to have to move. I think.
Hmm.
Um, Senior Bowl is going to have to take place in the middle of February instead of the middle of December, January, because I mean it's pushed an extra weekend. It's now pushed to the first weekend in February, but I think it's going to get pushed even further out because it used to be like January 18th or something ridiculous like that. It used to be Senior Bowl week, um, just because these teams that want to hire somebody from the Chiefs or the 49ers still can't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
It's making it harder for these teams to get their staffs together because we're compressing the calendar by so much. You know, I just feel like the draft's going to get pushed into May, and
Hmm.
you know, when all these things started years and years ago, we were on a 14 game schedule, no bye weeks, and uh, the playoffs were taking place at Christmas time. Super Bowl was
Yeah.
January 15th. Well, that's not how the league is anymore, but they still have things set up that way, and it's hard. I mean, at one time the draft was in like the first or second weekend of January. I
Hmm.
can just imagine people today like what? And college football is just as bad. College
Yeah.
football now has the national championship game the second week of January, whereas it used to be all over with by New Year's Day.
Yep. And now you're
Um,
talking about going to a 12-team
so
playoff, which, by the way,
it's
is, that's just beyond ridiculous. You're gonna end up having the national college NCAA national championship game played the week between the NFL conference championship games and the Super Bowl.
in March Madness. It's
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
March Madness is gonna be right behind it. It's gonna be like, oh, you love college sports? Here we go. We got March Madness going on. So I mean, it's just um yeah, I'm gonna talk a little about Taylor Swift because I want to get your thoughts before we go further into the Saints coaching search. I want to get your thoughts about the NFC and AFC championship games and kind of this. I don't know what to describe it as, other than this incredible pushback people have over the fact that they see Taylor Swift at every Chiefs game. Um, I, you have daughters. I have
Yeah.
daughters. My daughters are in their 20s now. But when Taylor Swift came out with those original songs, 15, um, You Belong to Me, and those
Hmm.
songs, I'm talking about early in her career, Love
Hmm.
Story, that early in her career, my kids were that age. They
Yep.
were tweens, they were
Yep.
teens. So they grew up with Taylor Swift. So yeah,
Hmm.
my daughter stayed on the phone with her credit card in hand to get tickets to the concert, and she's going with her sister and my wife. They're all going because they drove to Colorado singing Taylor Swift songs and all that stuff. So they kind of grew up that way. Um, and I don't have a problem with them showing her. I'm not a fan of her music. I mean, I think some of it's kind of funny from the standpoint of I can picture what my kids were doing hearing
Hmm.
those songs,
Yeah.
them singing those songs. I don't think
Yeah.
about her. I think about my kids screaming, you know, she wears short skirts. I wear sneakers. I don't remember all the lyrics. I can hear my girls screaming those lyrics in the
Yeah.
car. That's what I remember. So it doesn't bother me that she's there because what's the difference between her and the Kardashians? Well, aside from, I mean, the obvious stuff with the Kardashians. Kardashians are not biodegradable any longer. But I mean, really, Kim Kardashian was at the playoff game for Reggie Bush, the Cardinals game. For the NFC Championship game, you had Spike Lee, you had Olivia, the I can't think of it, the blonde. She's from New Orleans. I just cannot think of the actress's name. It's not Olympia Dukakis. It's someone else. But anyway, um, all those people were there. Um, you know, it's yeah. Well, Kim didn't go to very many games either. Compared to Taylor, who's been in every game. But yeah, I'm just saying. You know, eh, I can remember. Jack Nicholson's at every damn Lakers game. And yeah, Sandra Bullock. There's another one. Eh, it doesn't bother me that you have celebrities at the games. I would be more annoyed if Taylor Swift was sitting on her phone the whole time. Every time they
Hmm.
showed her, she's not even into the
Hmm.
game or anything like that. But she's a fan.
Yeah.
Now Jason Kelsey was much more entertaining. I mean, going shirtless, chugging a beer, jumping out in the stands. I mean, that was entertaining.
Yeah.
But you know, I want to get your thoughts on this because it seems to be that's all the talk right now this week. That Taylor at the game.
And the people that are talking about it, that's your own damn fault for talking about it. I don't have a problem with Taylor Swift at all, being at these games. I don't look at it any differently than the different celebrities and more, that you mentioned. I'm not. I certainly don't think it's bad for the game. I'm not going to say it enhances the game either. Uh, Most of the people that have the issue with Taylor Swift being at the games and more, most of the people that have an issue with Taylor Swift being shown at the games are men with clear insecure issues. That's just my opinion. Therapy 101 at Under the Dome, I guess. Uh, I don't see why anybody should have a problem with it. Do you have a problem with your, the neighborhood mom next door, that's screaming, who dad, or in my neck of the woods, here we go Steelers. No, you shouldn't. So why would you have a problem with Taylor Swift? She seems to legitimately enjoy the football experience and seems to be a fan. Now, I have no doubt that part of that is for publicity. Hype it up a little bit more, Taylor. Get those cameras on you, et cetera. That's just what people of that caliber do. But I don't have a problem with her or anybody else being a fan. And that's the only way I look at it, is just her being
Yeah,
a fan. The
yeah,
networks that show her, the network cameras that show her. Okay, that's annoying and not unnecessary, but that's on the network. I'm not mad at Taylor Swift for it. The announcers, the biggest idiot on the face of the earth, Tony Romo, making comment after comment after comment. That's on him, not Taylor Swift. And I have plenty of other reasons to hate Romo and other announcers like him. I had zero problem with Taylor Swift or anybody else being shown at the games, talked about at the games, or being a fan in general. I'm not gonna throw my man card down on the floor, and stomp off like a 5-year-old saying I'm not gonna watch football anymore. No, I think that's ridiculous. What's a problem with anybody being a fan of anybody else? I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. Now, I happen to be a mild fan of Taylor Swift's music, mainly because I grew up, not grew up, but I had daughters growing up listening to it too. My last concert before Lauren and I attended the latest Billy Joel retirement tour concert 2 years ago for our anniversary. My previous concert before that was 2011, when I took my girlfriend at the time to see Taylor Swift, and I enjoyed the show. I'm, like I said, I'm going to call myself a mild fan, but whether or not I'm a fan of Taylor Swift is irrelevant. I don't think I don't think I should have any more of a problem with her being at the game than she should have with me being at a game. That's the way I look at it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, if Travis Kelsey played for the Saints and Taylor Swift was at the game, I'm going to tell you right now, the clown, and you guys know who I'm talking about, with the yellow hair and the little thing on his nose. or Soul Man, who has the big fro and the boxing gloves, or Elvis, or any Whistle Monster, any of those characters that show up at the game would still get more television time than Taylor Swift over the course of a game. They'll show her every time Kelsey does something, but every time they show a crowd shot, one of those four characters you will see in the crowd shot, or the Joker. There's another one who's not
Mm-hmm.
there. Now, the clown is somebody I can think of, is because the clown's only been at the Saints games for God nearly 40 years. Um, if you go back and look at the Bum Phillips era, the 1983 highlight film, there he is. He's
Mm-hmm.
not as dressed up, but he's dressed up as the clown. He's got the yellow hair, and he's there the Mora years, the Dicka years, the Hazlitt years, and the Peyton years. You just see him. You just see him progressively getting older.
Yeah.
His daughter has grown up since then. I think he probably has great grandchildren now. But yeah, but over 40 years, he's been there. So I'm kind of used to seeing, non-football fans at the game and stuff. And again, it Taylor, I would be more annoyed if she looked totally disinterested in the game. But I like her standing up and cheering, and
Mm-hmm.
she doing that whatever she was doing in the press box. It's like she admitted she's not a fan. She's become a football fan. That's kind of cool to me.
Yeah.
And I, I, but I didn't want to spend this much time on her. But the fact is, I just needed to say something, just because I see so much hatred, and it's like America lost because the Chiefs won. America didn't lose because the Chiefs won. Um, the Chiefs won because the Ravens were stupid. I mean, there's no other way of getting around it. Taylor Swift didn't punch Patrick Mahomes in the face, or push him in front of the football, uh, for unsportsmanlike conduct, or fumble at the goal line, or throw a pass into triple coverage. Taylor Swift didn't do any of that stuff.
Or call six running
It
plays to your running
was,
back when you led the National Football League in rushing the football.
well, I have a theory about that. And this is my theory. And, you can call me a hater, but I think they wanted Lamar Jackson to be the hero of the game, and
Without
this
a
was
doubt.
about creating a game. Yet without Lamar Jackson running, he was going to throw the ball and outduel Patrick Mahomes, who everyone knows is arguably the greatest passer in the modern NFL right now, of active passers. I'm not comparing to Breeze or Brady or, Manning or any passer. I'm talking about in the current NFL landscape. He is the best passer. So you you're looking for a shootout, much like Elway versus Montana versus Marino,
Mm-hmm.
or you're trying to manufacture this epic battle and it didn't happen that way. It didn't go out that way, so they changed who they were to do that. I mean, you feel that way? Did it seem like that to you?
Yeah, I felt it that way at the time, and I said it several times during the game. I didn't ask. I think I asked once out loud, "Why aren't they running the football more?" And then after that, 3 or 4 times through the remainder of the game, I commented essentially to the fact that you just said. So I have no doubt, that's the narrative that the Ravens wanted to win the football game by. Not, and in essence, you didn't give any respect at all to the Chiefs' defense in the process, and you overestimated your own defensive capabilities while doing so. I and
Yeah.
I I lumped that right along with Zay Flowers and the other stupid penalties that they made. The Ravens lost that football game, not necessarily because the Chiefs were better, although the Chiefs were better that on Sunday. The Ravens lost because they were stupid. Period.
Yeah, I mean, you held the Chiefs to 17 points, but the Chiefs kind of reinvented their offense this year when they
Yeah.
realized they didn't have the great receivers like they had in the past, where Mahomes can just throw the ball all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of reinvented their offense to be a ball control. We're going to win our game with the defense. We don't need Patrick Mahomes to be Superman. Although that pass that he threw to Travis Kelsey for that first touchdown,
Yeah.
that was breeze like. I mean, down and away where only Kelsey could get it. And Kelsey going, what, 12 for 12? 12 targets, 12
Yeah.
catches for 100. I mean, that was just amazing. That was just, I mean, that was the story to me, more so than Taylor or anybody else. That was the story. You know, you wanted a duel in the sky. Well, Patrick Mahomes out-dueled you, and that defense took care of you, and you lost the game because your team played stupidly. You
Yep.
know, I'm watching the game at walk-ons, and I'm being obnoxious because there was a whole bunch of Raven fans, and I'm pulling for the Chiefs, so I'm being obnoxious. But Zay Flowers pushing the guy. Okay, you probably can get away with that push. Then you spin the ball at him. It's like, dude, you're begging for it. You are begging for it. Then after he fumbles the ball, um, in the end zone, he goes to the sideline, punches the bench, and gets part of his helmet in the process and cuts his hands.
Yeah.
I mean, eh, that's you lost the game because you were stupid. There's no other
Yep.
way of getting around it. Speaking of stupid, let's talk about the 49ers and Lions. 24-7, halftime. This game turns on a 4th and 2 when the Lions pass a field goal to go for it, to, I guess, get the kill shot. Um, what were you thinking as you watched this game unravel?
I was thinking, what the F is Dan Campbell thinking? Uh,
Mhm.
Look, I respect the fact that Campbell has got cajones as big as the states of Louisiana and Pennsylvania combined. I do, and he stuck by that. He didn't do a Marty Schottenheimer or a Bill Cower and go into a shell once the spotlight revved up. So you got to love Dan Campbell for being Dan Campbell, but you also got to have you also got to use a working brain cell or two. You had two fourth down opportunities where you were in makeable field goal range. And even if you only take one of those, and obviously there's no guarantee you're going to make the field goals, but they got a pretty good kicker. Um, if you make one of those field goals, we're sitting here tonight talking about the Detroit Lions going to their first ever Super Bowl. It's really that simple. And, I realize you see the potential to put the kill shot on the 49ers, but you're also on the road. You have a big lead. You got to start doing that math in your head. Oh, if we get this field goal here, they now need 4 scores, or they got to get into the end zone 4 times. You're increasing pressure on the home team when you're already putting the screws to them, and making them kind of get out of them being the 49ers, making them kind of get out of their element. Now, those Dan Campbell fourth down losses weren't the only ones that lost the game. They had 6 drop
No.
passes, including that interception. And Jared Goff, well, he turned back into
Mhm.
Jared Goff. Those were just a combination of things. But if Dan Campbell, and I'm sure he learned. And I doubt I'm sure he's going to continue to be highly aggressive, but I'm hoping that Campbell learned and he'll take the smarter approach if faced with that situation next time. Because, like I said, they make one of those field goals, the Detroit Lions win the game. We're not even talking about a possibility, of the 49ers pulling that out.
Well, yeah, and I don't have a problem with going for 'em 4th down. My thing was, if you're going to go for it on fourth down, you have to have a play in mind. I'm going to put this on Ben Johnson too. You have to have a play in mind that you know is going to work, that will
Yeah.
work against the defense you know they're going to call.
Yep.
You know what the situation is. You know how to make them do what you want them to do. Um,
Alan,
then you
that's
go for it and
exact.
you
Those are
get it.
the exact
It
words that you and I used on that Thursday night game when
mhm,
when the Saints, Dennis Allen went for it twice against the Rams. Those are
yep,
the exact
yep.
combination of words that you and I both used. So yeah, I do put the play calls themselves. On the I think it was the second of the fourth down tries where they had the drop pass.
Mhm.
But yeah, on the first one they didn't look like they even had a play that they were confident in running.
No. I thought in the second one too, you could see, I think it was number 9. I don't know all the receivers for the Lions, but it was number 9. He runs a shallow drag about a yard away from the first down marker, and Goff doesn't even see him. Goff throws it deep. And I just like, if you throw the drag, you get the first down, and he's probably not the primary receiver, but it just didn't feel like you manipulated the 49ers defense to make them do what you want. And here's the other thing, like you said, if they kick one of those field goals, we probably are talking about Chiefs Lions Super Bowl, which is kind of what I wanted to see because I thought that would be the most interesting of them. But if you kick one of those field goals, not only does the 49ers have to have to play a game they're not comfortable playing, and that is put it on Brock Purdy's shoulders to win the game. But the Lions can now run the ball at will, and they were killing them on the ground. This is unbelievable catch.
Yeah.
That this is just sheer luck. I couldn't believe that was considered a catch. I'm like, yeah, he caught that, and it was really
Hmm.
the turning point here
Hmm.
because it got them back in the game. It was really a one big play, but what I'm saying is now your defense knows if you're the Lions, defense knows they're going to throw on most downs. I
Hmm.
can turn my pass rush loose. I can drop everybody off in coverage and just spy CMC, you know, to make sure he doesn't break out for a big play and make the clock my ally.
Yep.
Make them use the clock to get back in this game. But as you can see in these highlights, it just snowballs on them. So the
Hmm.
17-point lead evaporates, and the offense has no response. And yeah, I thought that Goff went to a shell. I thought the pressure got to Goff to make the right throws. I thought the pressure got to the receivers too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to say something here. If you guys go back and watch the 2009 Saints NFC Championship game with the Vikings, the pressure got to Breeze, and the
Oh
pressure
yeah.
got to that offense too. I felt that they were not very sharp. Breeze was not zipping that ball in there. He was kind of double clutching it a little bit and kind of afraid to really put it in there. So you had a lot of passes that kind of had just a little less RPMs on them, and it made it a little more difficult for these guys to catch the ball. Especially you watch those final drives in overtime too. Where we had 3 reviews and everything else. The receivers felt it. Everyone got tight. All
Hmm.
it was like the entire team just jumped in an ice bucket nude because all their nuts shrunk.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could put it.
Yeah.
And the Vikings defense was trying so hard to make a play, make something happen so they could get their offense the ball again. In many ways, the Vikings outplayed the Saints for almost that entire game
Yeah.
because the Saints were so tight, because this was their chance, this was their game. And that happens in these title games.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought Detroit did the same thing in this
Hmm.
game. They just got tighter and tighter. The closer this game got, the tighter they got. When they started out like gangbusters, they were loose. And and it just felt like they couldn't finish, and the 49ers, they would get more and more confident longer the game went on. So, uh, it was just one of those games that once the snowball started, I'm like, they're not going to come back. They blew this.
Yep.
It's gonna fall apart on them. And it's a shame because, like I said, I really wanted Detroit to win this game. Um, Looking back at the playoffs, what was your biggest takeaway of the playoff game? Because a lot of them were one-sided games. Very few of them were, close games. It was like one team just kind of took control and just choked to death somebody.
Yeah, and that's one of my
What
major
was your take?
takeaways from. Yeah, that's one of my major plays from the takeaways from the playoff. Most of the playoff games. Yeah, and another big one was the teams that were most successful seemed to be the teams that stuck to their personalities.
Mhm.
For instance, the Philadelphia Eagles, a very good running team most of the time, and we both agreed that the Eagles, when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had quit anyway, blatantly quit. But the
Mhm.
Eagles, a very good running team most of the time, they didn't even try to run the ball against Tampa Bay. We talked
Yeah.
about the Ravens, number one rushing defense in the NFL. They stopped trying to run the football again. They didn't even try to run the football against the Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills, tons of success running the football in the first half against the Chiefs the week before. Then in the second half, they decided they wanted to give Josh Allen his moment. Well, lo and behold, Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Build. It's those kind of things that I saw happen over and over and over again, and it struck me as the teams that stuck to their personalities, the most. Kansas City, ball control. You give it to Mahomes, let him make the plays in the biggest moments, but you let your defense guide you. That's why they're in the Super Bowl. The 49ers, multiple ways to beat you on offense, and they use those multiple weapons. In both of their playoff wins, a very physical front four from the 49ers, front seven from the 49ers. They let those guys make the
Mhm.
plays. They let those guys create the disruptions rather than just sitting back and letting a quarterback attack their vulnerable secondary. That's why the 49ers are in the Super Bowl. The other teams won their playoff games. Tampa Bay beat Philadelphia in the first round because they just rode Baker Mayfield. They came in, uh, you know, they ran the ball well enough against Philadelphia, but they realized Baker Mayfield's had the hot hand. We're going to roll with him, and they continued to do that against the Lions the week after, and nearly pulled off an upset. So the teams that stuck to their personalities the best, seem to be the most successful in this playoff run.
Absolutely. And, for me too, the old saying, defense wins championships. Offense gets you to the dance.
Sure.
Offense will get you to the postseason. But when the calendar turns to late December and January, it's time for your defense and your running game to um, to take over, and that's what's going to win you the championship. Not your quarterback being Mister Superhero, hero playing hero ball out there, but you got to be able to run the football, and your defense has to be able to shut the other team down. And we saw that with the Packers. We saw that with the Bucks, both in the first round. We even saw that a good bit in the second round when a lot of the teams, the Ravens. That's what how the Ravens took out the uh, the Texans. They ran the ball and their defense smothered the uh, the the Texans. It's just a lot of people are like, well, the Saints have no business being in the postseason this past year. Honestly, the Saints were in a position to do a lot of the things that the Packers and the Bucks and the Texans did in the postseason. Um, I'm not saying they could run the ball that well, but you finally had Miller healthy enough. It looked like they had a running game with him and Taysom Hill. You know, the defense could shut people down if they wanted to. They were doing that. They shut down the Bucks. They shut down the Falcons, um, they were playing playoff, and I'm not going to say they were going to make a run or anything like that, but they were playing playoff level football. They probably could win 1 or 2 games
Hmm.
if they would have got the right matchups. I mean, clearly the Eagles quit, so I wasn't fearful of those guys. Um, so that, and the reason why I'm bringing all this stuff up is because that leads us right back to the offensive coordinator position. What is the key to getting a good offensive coordinator? Well, they want somebody from the Shanahan tree, obviously. What do you think this offense's personality needs to be then in order to do what these other teams have done in the postseason?
Um, Going by what you said, that they're focusing on the Shanahan coaching tree, and I agree with that statement. Um, what's the Shanahan coaching tree famous of? And this going all the way back to Mike Shanahan with the Denver Broncos. Yes, running the football, Terrell Davis, but it's more than just lining up and punching you in the mouth. It's beating you with formations and isolation matchups, zone blocking schemes, up front. Which, by the way, it would be a scheme that Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller, I think, both would thrive in. And those are the questions that Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen, and whoever else is sitting in on these interviews, they have to be asking these guys. First question out of my mouth: how are you going to use Alvin Kamara? I don't want to hear I'm going to use Alvin Kamara. I want to hear how you're going to use Alvin Kamara. Because we haven't seen him, used to his best skill sets. Going all the way back to 2020. So I'm including Sean Payton in his last year with the Saints. He didn't use Alvin Kamara to his best skill sets. On that note, how are you going to use Taysom Hill? That's one thing that Pete Carmichael was when he did use him. He was very successful in how he used Taysom Hill. So I'd like to see that continue. We've seen Kyle Shanahan and his assistants use Deebo Samuel in marvelous ways the last couple of seasons. And I have said all year long, why don't you use Rashid Shaheed that way? He's not quite as physical as Deebo is, but you're talking about a guy who's an all-pro punt returner. So he has open field skills. He's more than just a guy that you line up and run deep. So I want to hear how you're going to use Deebo Samuel. You have a matchup, a potential that matchup advantage with Juwan Johnson at tight end. How are you going to use that? Are you going to move them around the formation? Those are questions that they need to be asking these guys. And then the obvious two that the average fan is focused on. How are you going to use Derek Carr to the best of his ability? How are you going to improve Derek Carr's game? How are you going to improve the offensive line? What are your ideas? Obviously, we need better players there too. But
Mm-hmm.
you get given the line the way it's constructed. Say you have this line, that the Saints coaches had last year. Watch the film with me and tell me how you would employ these guys in a blocking scheme that would be more successful in what they have done. Those are the questions that they need to ask these guys, and that's why I completely understand why they are going through the Shanahan coaching tree, because Shanahan's teams, they have a very good offensive line, but it's not an offensive line that's been extremely healthy over the last few years. The top stars have missed games, yet they still performed at a great level. I don't need to tell anybody how they view, how successful Christian McCaffrey has been. Just mention how successful Deebo Samuel has been. A lot of people like to call it a quarterback-friendly system. I don't think that's given nearly enough the deserved credit to Brock Purdy. But nonetheless, it's maximizing your quarterback's abilities and not putting too much pressure on him to be a one-man show. So I completely understand why they are looking at the different assistants that they are.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, to me, you look at the 49ers offense, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara, Deebo Samuel, Rashid Shaheed, and Taysom Hill. Brock Purdy, 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant pick, successfully running this offense, outplaying, and so much so that they got rid of a guy they gave up 3 first-round picks for, Trey Lance. it's a system that's designed for a certain kind of quarterback, which Derek Carr can fit into, and you can execute with the same basic personnel that you have on your roster right now. You can execute much of what the 49ers are doing right now. It just takes somebody who is creative as a play caller and knows, more importantly, what plays to call and when. So I totally get the why they're going through the guys that they're going through. And yeah, you're playing some wild cards. You're interviewing the quarterbacks coach from the Steelers. You're interviewing guys like the Bears. I think the Bears receivers coach. No, it's the Ravens receivers coach and a
Hmm.
couple other guys. Just because you want to hear other ideas, it's
Yeah.
a copycat league. But there are things that guys do that you like, that you want to know. So it gives you just more options and things that, hey, I never thought about this. Maybe this
Hmm.
guy's got something. How is this guy interviewing and that kind of stuff. Um, it's That's why I don't feel the pressure to have somebody named, because I think this is who they're targeting. They're targeting people they know are going to are playing in the Super Bowl. They're not necessarily putting all their eggs in the basket, but I think they are pretty confident they can get one of those two guys to come here and be the OC. Um, One of
Yeah,
the
I'll
things.
agree. I'll agree with that, and I'll also add that folks remember that the Saints are not only looking for an offensive coordinator; they need a wide receiver coach. They need a running back coach, and Ronald Curry, the quarterback coach, Clancy Barone, the tight end coach, the two offensive line coaches, Marone and Jari Evans. They may not be retained, or they may choose to leave on their own volition, depending on who the coordinator hire is. So, the
Mhm.
Saints are not only interviewing guys for potential offensive coordinator jobs, folks. These are guys that could be brought back in as position coaches if it's necessary too. It's not just for one hire, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's the main hire and that's the most important one. But you're also lining up different fallback options. Yes, if your top offensive coordinator choices don't pan out, but you're also lining up potential uh, position coaches as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I honestly believe there's a lot of people who just think they're just going to hire John Gruden, or they're just going to hire, Ronald Curry, promote in-house, say, "Oh, we tried, but we really couldn't find anybody we like," and anything like that, and just go with the lazy hire, because that's what they think the Saints did when they got Dennis Allen.
Right.
Um, and it's a stupid take, but it's a take based in just negativity. What's the worst thing they can do? Yeah. What's the worst thing they can do? The worst thing you do is hire John Gruden. Well, they're not going to hire John Gruden, because if that was the goal, if the idea is I'm going to hire John Gruden to be my offensive coordinator or my offensive assistant, and he will eventually replace Dennis Allen because Allen's getting fired next year or whatever. Um, why go through the whole song and dance? Why not
Exactly.
just in a week? In a week, just say, you know what? We interviewed 5 or 6 coaches, and this is the guy we chose.
Yep.
Don't go through this whole. It looks, the longer this takes, the more ridiculous that take becomes,
Yeah.
because this is clear. They are clearly targeting certain kind of coaches that they want a certain kind of scheme employed here.
Hmm.
They have a clear vision of what they want, and Gruden ain't it.
No.
And Gruden may not even want to do this, because for Gruden to go to be an offensive coordinator, and we've talked about this before too, that's a
Hmm.
step backwards in
Hmm.
your career. That's like hiring Bill Belichick to be your defensive coordinator.
Hmm.
Bill Belichick's not taking that job to be a defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick wants a head coaching job. Even Parcells would have come back. Bill's not going to be his defensive coordinator again. He's done that. He's done with that. I got more ideas than that. So it's just there's just so many reasons why it's not going to be Gruden.
Yeah.
They pick Gruden's mind for other reasons, not just to be this is going to be your new coach. Um, yeah, I know they talk about continuity, but they're not talking about continuity anymore. They're talking about severe locker room changes. They're talking about changing culture again. They're talking about changing an entire offensive scheme, different from the scheme they've been running for the past, 16, 18 years. Um, you're talking about reinventing the Saints under
Yeah.
Dennis Allen right now, um, which takes me to Michael Thomas's tweets. I've got my Thomas jersey on. I didn't even know this was going on. I just got on Twitter and saw the explosion. Um, how do you take this stuff?
Um, do you remember the days? And I'm not suggesting you did this, but you grew up in this era like I did. You were always warned not by your friends not to drunk dial and not to
Yep.
call people late at night when you're drunk.
Yep.
Now with the era of social media, it's it's drunk text, drunk tweet. I don't know if Michael Thomas drinks or not. I don't know the man well enough. But this every time he starts blurting out stuff, because this is not the first time this year he's done this, as you well know. It made me think each time. I'm like, is that man drunk? Someone needs to take his phone away from him now. Um, that's to make light of the situation because it's again I don't know whether Michael Thomas drinks or not, but that's the first thought that has gone through my mind each time he's done this. I'm like that man is drunk tweeting. Get him to stop. Bartender cut him off, whatever the case may be. But on a serious note, it's hard to disagree with anything that Michael Thomas has said because everything, he's pointed out things that we've all suspected. He's brought to light some things that we have wondered about. So it's hard to say that the man is wrong for the things that he is saying. I think Michael Thomas is wrong for saying them in the first place. He is violating a locker room code. Obviously, Mike Thomas wants out of New Orleans. That goes without saying, folks. He's going to get his wish. There is zero chance that Michael Thomas is back in a New Orleans Saints uniform in 2024. In fact, I'd bet a month's salary on it. But that without saying, there's other ways to get yourself out of the city that you're playing in if you want out. You need to do so. Michael Thomas is an idiot for doing it. He might not be wrong in what he's saying, but he's wrong for saying it in the first place. It's bad enough. It's unprofessional enough to take shots at an organization after you're gone, but to do so while you're there, and frankly, that turns other teams off too. Now there'll be someone that wants him. There will certainly be someone that wants him, and I still predict that Michael Thomas is going to end up in Kansas City next year, with Patrick Mahomes, which, by the way, had to do with one of his tweets. But I've thought that all year long. But Michael Thomas violated a locker room code, and anybody that's played sports, even at a semi-pro or an amateur level, you know this to be true. Take your fan hat off for a minute, and think about it as a team sport, as a team competitor. And Michael Thomas was way out of line here. And he's made himself. You know what I thought? What else I thought? I'm like, are we seeing the evolution of a new Terrell Owens? Because that's the kind of way that the way that Michael Thomas has painted himself to be, throughout the second half of this season. That's just my take on it.
It reminded me of early. No, I'm your early AB. This is Antonio Brown. This is Terrell Owens. This is Chad Johnson. Every diva receiver you can name. This is what they do. I thought that he was giving the red meat to the fans that they wanted to hear. He was telling them the things he was confirming the things that the anti Dennis Allen crowd uh, was saying about I mean, using even the same terms, medicine ball. That bad throw got me hurt. Well, you know what? Every quarterback in the NFL throws bad balls.
Right.
There's lots of reasons for Tom Brady throws bad balls. Drew Brees threw bad balls. I mean, Marcus Colston. How many times Marcus Colston had to go over the middle and he put that ball up high? That you're going to get your receiver killed. And it, it happens in the course of a game. Um, but fans jumped all over it because it's what they wanted to hear. And I agree with you. I think it is. He was sitting there watching the Chiefs Ravens game and going, my ass could be sitting in that game right now, me making the plays. I could make those catches that those
Hmm.
receivers are dropping. I'm better than anybody on that field right now, including Zay Flowers. Travis Kelsey, maybe the only guy I'm not as good as, but me and Travis could make this game work because
Hmm.
Thomas Thomas was the one that said, "Thank you, Jesus," when we got Derek Carr. He said
Yes.
the same shit last year about um about the quarterbacks the Saints had before, Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston and all the quarterbacks they had. He said all the same shit. Um, he said this same shit about Sean Payton too in 2020. 2021 and 2020 with the whole thing about not wanting to get surgery on his ankle. The Saints had a huge rigmarole about that. So him coming out saying this stuff, it's just he is that kind of player that watches a game on TV and starts thinking to himself, I'm better than these motherfuckers
Hmm.
here. And he just starts tweeting and it just gets people all riled up. So I take what he says to be the case too. I do sit there and go, yeah, he's pretty much confirming what we all kind of suspected what was going
Yeah.
on. And I said that part of Dennis Allen's problem was that he is not a leader. He's an X and O's guy and he can control the defense, but he's not the guy who um can he's not a Sean Payton, he's not a Bill Parcells, he's not a Bill Belichick that takes the whole team under control like that and
Yep.
be the voice, that's the voice in the room. He relies too much on his players to do that. And that's part of the reason why I think the Saints are going to have a locker room culture change.
Yeah.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The young players not getting it, not opening up their tablets and studying film when they're supposed to, not doing the things they're supposed to do. And the leaders were not holding them accountable until much later. Um, Derek Carr wasn't a leader on this team, and if you're missing leaders in your personnel, your coach has to be the leader, and Dennis Allen's not that guy. So, I get those things, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't give red meat to the fans. You have
No.
to keep that in house. And all you do is making it worse. And what's going to end up happening? And players talk and the players know. Okay. But what's going to end up happening as far as front offices are concerned and head coaches are concerned, I don't want that guy on my team
Yep.
because if things go south, he's gonna be one of my first problems I'm gonna have to deal with,
Yep.
and things do go south. It went south for Kansas City. They're in the Super Bowl. It went
Yeah.
south for the 49ers for a while, and they're in the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. The 49ers had a 4-game losing streak. People don't talk about that right now, but that was that whole is Brock Purdy an MVP? No, Brock Purdy's a system quarterback.
Hmm.
That was during that whole thing. So
Hmm.
yeah, imagine he goes to Kansas City. and they hit a 4-game losing streak or a 5-game losing streak because the defense isn't playing, he's ball, and Mahomes is struggling. Does he start calling out Patrick Mahomes now? I don't think he will because Mahomes commands so much respect, but
Right.
he may call out some of those other receivers,
Yep.
and that's not good, or he may
Yeah.
make veiled comments about people say things, but they don't do things. Those
Hmm.
cryptic tweets, like who the fuck is he talking about? Well, could be talking about anybody, you know, and then come back and say, well, I'm just talking, you know. I don't
Yeah,
mean
and
nothing
listen,
by
Michael
it.
Thomas is still a very talented player. Someone will take him. I love Michael
Absolutely.
Thomas, the player. I always
I
have.
do
I
too.
always will. But
I do
what
too.
Michael Thomas has just done is limit his opportunities for next year. Now, maybe he has a backdoor, backdoor channels through Kansas City, San Diego, L.A. Chargers, whoever else. One of the elite quarterbacks. Um,
Hmm.
but I guarantee you, it's not going to be a multi-year deal. It's going to be a one-year deal. What Michael Thomas has done is what Terrell Owens did to himself towards the end of his career. 1-year deal, move on to another team. 1-year deal, move on to another team. And you, okay, you still make money that way. You still get stats that way. Terrell Owens, still put together a Hall of Fame caliber career that way, and Michael Thomas could certainly do the same. But to me, you're tarnishing your personality, and it's disappointing to me, that Michael Thomas, has not handled this situation more maturely. Yeah, Calvin, I think I saw you were the one that made the comment. He clearly wants out of New Orleans. Yeah, he does. But there are lots of players that want out of the situations that they're in. There are lots of players that get their way without acting unprofessional, immature, and infantile in this way. And again, and Alan and I both agreed, what Michael Thomas said was not wrong, but saying it in the first place was the wrong thing to do.
It's wrong to say it in a public forum like this. It really is. You keep that to yourself and you say some of these things after your career is over with. Looking back at bad situations. I look at a guy like Archie Manning. Yeah, we're talking about a guy from 50 years ago. You look at a guy like Archie Manning. Archie Manning would have been he had every right to say the kind of stuff that Thomas had said because the franchise was a complete disaster around him. Demand to be traded. Get me the hell off of this sinking ship because nobody knows anything. He didn't do any of that. He never threw his teammates under the bus when he should have. He never threw the front office under the bus when he should have. There's a cocaine problem in the locker room during that 1-15 season. He never said to the media, guys, uh, if Chuck Muncie would just study the playbook instead of putting shit up his nose, he'd probably be a much better running back. Or if Don Reese would stop talking crap about, how great he was in Miami and just do what he said he was going to do here and stop putting shit up his nose, he probably would be a great defensive end for us and we'd have a pass rush and a flex defensive work. He didn't say any of that stuff. But in today's world, athletes do. Um, yeah, I'm not saying he's a cancer, Randy. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that. What I'm saying is that's it's a bad look to do what he did in a public forum like Twitter. Um, uh, he when things don't. This is the closest I'm going to get to this is probably an NBA equivalent. NBA players do this kind of stuff a lot. Call out their coaches, call out their teammates and stuff because there's fewer of them and they want to go to a super team to win that
yeah,
championship. And I just feel like that's what this reminded me of. It's NBA-ish kind of behavior. Um no,
yeah. And
and
Randy,
I'm
you mentioned self
not
accountability. But
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Bob. What you were going to
oh,
say?
sorry. Randy, you mentioned self accountability, and that's something that Michael Thomas did not take here. That's something that Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, Mickey Loomis, among others, have been vilified for not taking self accountability, not taking responsibility for their own shortcomings. That's something they have been vilified for all season, and rightfully so. What Michael Thomas did was lump himself right in with those guys. Again, what he said was absolutely correct. At least based off of what we know. But Mike Thomas could have kept his mouth shut. At least publicly. And just taken a certain amount of self accountability in his own silence. Yeah, you could tell your friends what you tweeted about. You could even say it about the Saints, Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, whoever else after you leave. But it's very unprofessional, and it does make guys like Patrick Mahomes and the other respected members of the NFL, other respected quarterbacks, they notice this stuff. Just like Alan said, that doesn't mean that they don't want you. I mean, hell, Tom Brady wanted Antonio Brown, but it was just for a limited basis. It was a trial basis, and that's the kind of situation that Michael Thomas has now painted himself into. That's not to say that he wouldn't be successful somewhere else if he could stay healthy. I still believe he's one of the top 5, top 7 receivers in the entire NFL based off of his skill set. But because of the way he handled this situation, he has limited his opportunities for his next stop. And frankly, it's a little bit of a shame because I like Mike Thomas a lot.
Yeah, and I just to dovetail with that, I agree. There's nothing he said that was wrong. I just felt like Twitter was the worst place to vent about it because it doesn't accomplish anything by tweeting this. This is the kind of stuff you talk about in private. This is stuff you talk about among your friends. There's no reason to give red meat to the masses. Um, you know, okay. Yeah,
I agree with most of that.
yeah. I've already said Dennis Allen's not a leader. The gum smacking didn't bother me nearly as much as it seems to bother everybody else. Um, because I think what bothered people more about the gum smacking was Loomis's face while he was
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
and what he was saying.
yeah.
If he was smacking his gum and talking about holding people accountable, talking about this is unacceptable, talking about laying down the law, talking about those kind of things that some people on the hot seat that people are that we're going to make changes and that kind of stuff. I don't think that would have bothered them. But to hear Loomis talk about compare Dennis Allen in the same sentence with Bill Walsh, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, and then had this smug look on his face while
Mhm.
he's saying this. That's what I think. I think it was a combination of things.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the the whole Jameis Winston thing. Um, uh, there's so many things with Jameis. Um, I didn't even want Jameis on this team to begin with, and I've said this from the outset because I just don't feel like he's a very talented quarterback. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. Put him out there with a broken back, put him out there when he's struggling, put him in a position where he's going to fail only made it worse.
Yeah.
But benching him for the entire season, I mean, my thing is, if he wasn't going to be a quarterback, then don't resign him. You don't bring him back at
Right.
all. But he brought him back twice. I mean, you flirted with Deshaun Watson the first time around. You got Derek Carr this time around. If Jameis isn't your guy, do him a favor, cut him loose, let him go find a starting job somewhere else.
Right.
That's really my problem with Jameis, not benching him because he was going to bench him anyway because he was not his guy.
Hmm.
So that's the only way, that's how I look at it. Um, Yeah, who's holding Loomis accountable? Well, nobody really is because
Right.
he's in Gail Benson's will, Gail and Tom
Mhm.
Benson's will. Um, Loomis has probably the most secure job next to the Pope. You
Yeah.
know, you just got to accept it. I, 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 I don't like it, but it is what I hate saying this, but it is what it is. You know,
Hmm.
he's not going away. You know, I didn't like John Meekum as an owner. I had to deal with that until we sold the team. I mean, so it's like I don't think Loomis is Meekum by any stretch of imagination. Just Loomis isn't going anywhere.
Yep. And just like
And
people have to accept the fact that Dennis Allen is going to be the coach this year. Yeah, I get every single article I post. If it has nothing to do with Dennis Allen whatsoever, I get comments about Dennis Allen. I get it. You don't want him here. 98% of the fans don't. And I get why, and I agree with
yeah,
why. But Dennis Allen is going to be the Saints coach next year. Derek Carr is going to be the
yeah,
Saints coach next year. Guys, accept it. We don't have to like it.
yeah,
And you say your piece about not liking it, and then you move on. How else can this team get better? It's reached the point where Mickey Loomis, Derek Carr, and Dennis Allen can do nothing right. And they're getting criticized for for chewing gum in a press conference, or the next thing might be Derek's wearing his hat backwards. How dare he? A quarterback of his age or something like that. I'm citing a ridiculous scenario, obviously, but that's the point we've reached. Nobody wants to come here because Derek Carr is the quarterback. That's not the way the NFL works. Nobody wants
yeah,
to work for Dennis. That's not the way the NFL works. I get you hate these guys, and I get why.
yeah.
Um, but
Devontae Adams, Devontae Adams went to the Raiders because of Derek Carr.
right,
So I mean, it is what it is. Now, Randy, I do agree with this. It is a need. Um,
yeah,
they're talking about we're gonna get more into this as free agency unfolds, but they're talking about Hunter Renfro coming over to the. I don't think Hunter Renfro is going to fill any kind of void. I want a guy like T. Higgins. Honestly, I'd break the bank for T. Higgins because you don't have the draft picks to go get a guy.
hmm
And I don't want to count on A.T. Perry growing up. I want A.T. Perry to be my surprise guy.
hmm
You know, I would want a veteran possession contested catch receiver to come to this team to take Michael Thomas's place. Not to do Michael Thomas things, but because no one can, but just be that guy. And that's what this whole show is all about is I Dennis Allen's gonna be my coach. So how can we be successful with Dennis Allen? And I don't want to hear or we can't be successful with Dennis Allen. Because that's no way to look forward to a season. I have no desire to sit the entire season and go, well, this is a waste of effing time. And, you know, I'm not even going to pay attention to the draft because whoever they draft's going to be horrible.
right.
This is a wasted season. We're just counting the days till they fire everybody because they might not even fire everybody. Freaking Gus, whatever his name is from no Hugh Jackson went 0-16 and then 1-15 before they finally fired him. So I, I can't look at it this way. All I can do, and I did this even during the Ditka years. I did this during the Bum Phillips years. I did this during Dick Nolan, Hank Schramm, John North, and that's about as far back as I can go because I was too young for J.D. Roberts and definitely too young for Tom Fears. But when those guys were coaching, I'm like, can we just get a running back? Can we just get a receiver? Can we just not suck? And that's all I'm saying. I want people to be successful because and I agree with this, Randy. You kind of want to get an OC that's going to be, look, you got this. I'm going to
hmm
trust you to get this. I agree. That's why I looked this comment up. I agree with you on that. Um, I like Hunter Renfro, I think the Raiders were the reason why we missed out during the trade deadline because the Raiders are stupid.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Raiders should have traded him like 3 times. Hell, I'd take Devontae Adams from the Raiders. You know, but yeah, I just need this team to be successful. Lucky me, yeah, yeah, uh,
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
just it. A lot of these people seem to be rooting for the Saints to fail because they hate Dennis Allen or because they hate Derek Carr. I don't like those guys in place. I wish they would have made decisions with them, especially Allen. But that's who we have. So I'm going to root for this team. I'm going to try to find, as an analyst, I'm going to try to find ways that this team can succeed. So I'm not going to bury them for every signing or every offensive, coordinator interview. And yeah, Randy, absolutely. And Alan and I have been saying this, and we've been saying it on the Bayou Blitz too. Brendan and I have. Whoever is the offensive coordinator needs to be the czar of that group. To let Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen's a defensive guy, so Dennis Allen needs to focus on the defense. You need this offensive coordinator hire to be successful because a lot of jobs are on the line. Obviously, I think that goes without saying. But for just for the team, in general, to have any kind of success. So that's why, again, going back before we close out the show, that's why they need to do due diligence. That's why I have no problem with them interviewing 10, 11 candidates, until they feel they get their guy.
Yeah, there's 15. There was 15 offensive coordinator jobs that were open this year. A lot of teams have gotten things wrong. Um, so it's not just the Saints. The Saints aren't the worst coaching staff in the NFL. The Saints aren't the worst at everything in the NFL. A lot of coaches, a lot of teams get things wrong. So I'm all for interviewing everybody to try and get it right, because once you get it right, you can make that playoff run, because like you said, the schedule's not very brutal, and the NFC in general doesn't look very good. We were a couple draft picks and getting stop doing stupid things away from getting back in the playoffs and making some noise like the Packers did and the Texans did, and those kind of guys. So it's not, to me, it's not as awful as everyone's making it out to be. I kept you way later than I planned on, Bob, but I appreciate you, Randy, throwing these comments in.
Yes.
I appreciate all you guys throwing comments in, because that's really what helps keep this show going. Because a lot of times
Yes.
I'm scratching my head trying to figure out what the hell we're going to talk about. Speaking of what you're going to talk about, what are you talking about tomorrow night on the Bayou Blitz, Bob?
Well, again, folks, we need your help. So jump in on the Bayou Blitz with Brendan and I tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Time. Help us out with your questions. Help us out with your comments. We're going to be talking about the Saints news. We didn't even talk about it. What positions to look at the Senior Bowl this coming weekend. So hopefully Brendan and I will have some time to get into that. But the main news is obviously the offensive coordinator.
All right. Calvin won tonight.
He did. Calvin won. But yeah, we're going to talk about who the hell knows who else they're going to line up for offensive coordinator interviews. Maybe Brendan and I will delve into more specifically what each candidate could bring to the table if we have some time. But yeah, I mean, that's the Saints news of the day. So unless something else breaks, or you guys have questions for us, that's going to be the topic. That's going to be the topic until it isn't the topic, until they make a hire, which frankly, guys, we might have to wait till after the Super Bowl to do. And if they are interested in who Alan and I think they are in, which is Clint Kubiak or Brian Greasy, then you do have to wait till after the Super Bowl. So we got another 2 weeks of this shit.
Yeah. I wanted to really talk about the Senior Bowl too, because there's like a handful of people to really watch. We said that they're not going to be quarterback. Not going to draft a quarterback in this first round. Not going to probably draft a quarterback early. But you never know what happens at this game. Watch the Tulane kid. That's a name to watch. Penix obviously is going to be there, but it's not out of the realm of possibility they do draft a quarterback. It just may not be the guy that everybody wants. But I'm really going to watch this Tulane kid this weekend. Anyway, that's about all I really have. I don't have a whole list of names or anything like that, but it's just a name that came up since everybody's always concerned about the quarterbacks. Thank you guys for sticking with us for this long. Thank you, Bob, for staying up past your bedtime for this. Everybody get on the Bayou Blitz. And thank you, Randy. Thank you, Anna, Calvin, St. John Butler, all you guys that chime in every day, every week we do this. Really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time on the Bayou Blitz. See you next time under the dome. Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.
Night.